The Elementary Teachers Federation of Ontario is running a workshop for thousands of teachers on white privilege. They take it as a given, therefore, that there is such a thing as white privilege. In Canada, we've assembled a panel to spend a few minutes on this. Paige McPherson is with us in the newsroom in Vancouver, JJ McCullough here in the studio, Anthony Furey, and Tarek Fatah. Tarek, let's start with you. How do you react when you hear the term white privilege?
Well, it exists. It's very widespread, but most white people are blind to it, and most colored people who want to be white are quite helpful in this exercise, and they would say it doesn't exist. It's like telling a blind man what's the difference between a radio set and a television set.
Anthony?
Define white privilege. I've never heard an exhaustive definition of this term, and it seems to me just a bogus new phenomenon
Let me
to give people
you some
something
evidence.
to agitate against.
Let me give you evidence. We are all public figures. We are all associated with the Sun, and we all use Twitter. I'll show you your Twitter account, Andrew's and mine. Let's show them. That's Jerry Agar, verified, privileged by Twitter. That's Anthony Furey, about 2,000 followers. Twitter verified with
You
privilege.
suggesting not a lot of people like me?
No. I'm saying that the only person with about 10 times your followers, an author, a columnist in the Sun, will not be verified. And you won't say this. Yes, a second.
Just a minute.
One second.
Wait a second. Are you saying that there's no black or brown people verified on Twitter?
No. I'm saying you have 2,000 followers.
No, I have 55,000.
4,000. He has about 2,000. I have 50.
This is a high school.
No,
Yeah,
it's
it
not a
is.
high school joke. It is an evidence of how blind you are to the privilege you have. And
I
you're
am not.
saying-
Have I been verified on Twitter because
Yes.
I'm white?
Yes.
Or is it something else?
What
Is it because of
tell
some
me.
way?
All right.
No,
I
tell
don't
me
think we
something.
know how they work and do the
one
logistics
second,
of
one
that.
second. You tell me how it works, and then I will tell you how it doesn't work. Show me how is it that with 2,000 followers and a columnist, the same, maybe I'm a bit older than you are, how did you get the verified privilege without asking for it?
I don't know because I
You
didn't ask for it. All right, just a minute. Let's check in with Paige McPherson. And Paige, when you're not being ground down because of your gender, you're getting a lot of privilege because of your skin color, I guess.
Ask her Twitter account. How is she privileged?
Let's let her answer, Tarek.
That matters.
All right, we're going to try and fix the audio problem that we have with Paige and get back to her. JJ McCullough is in Vancouver. JJ, how are you reacting to this?
Well, I think that white privilege exists to a point. I think, though, that there's privilege, that we're all privileged in different ways. I think, for instance, say that there is such a thing as Muslim privilege. For instance, if
Yes,
Tariq
there
goes
is.
to the airport.
No,
Okay, let him answer,
no,
Tarek.
just a second.
No, wait a second.
No,
Tarek,
this
stop it. We
deception
listened to you.
wouldn't
Tarek, we
We're
listened to
talking
you.
about
You
white
don't
privilege.
have brown privilege to take over the show.
No.
JJ,
Then
give
I
your,
should walk out.
give your answer.
I'll go.
No, what I was going to say, if
Why
say
do you
someone
bring
like
Muslim privilege in
Tariq,
it? This bull is not acceptable.
Tarek, calm down.
No, I
He's
won't
going
calm
to
down.
explain it to us. what
Then
he
tell
says.
us, where did the Muslim privilege come in
Tarek,
from?
don't
We
be
don't
coming.
know. Judge is going to say it right now. I have no clue what he even means by
I
Muslim
would
privilege.
like to,
I'd
if
like
I
to
can.
know.
What I was going to say is that if someone like Tariq goes to the airport and says that, oh, I was singled out for my race and for my religion, he is much more likely to get a lot of sympathy from sort of broad
Oh, really?
society than if I go to the airport and say I was singled out, and if I say, oh, I was racially profiled, people would
That's
tell
how
me
it
to
is.
take a hike.
He
So
ran
that's
out
a
of
form of
security.
privilege as well.
Sure, but I think there are all
And
very
do you know
if
the
I
number
complain-
of times with my name that I have never in 40 years been able to go through an airport without a check with the name Fatah? Have I ever complained about that?
No, but see, if
Just
you
a
say
second.
that, then in turn we're
One
likely to
second.
give you a great deal of
JJ,
sympathy
just
for
a
that,
second.
which
Tarek,
is
let me explain
fine.
something to you. This is not actually the Tarek Fatah show. Now, we want you to participate. We want you to also respect
throw me
the other
out.
people.
Ask someone
Respect
to throw me
the
out.
other people.
You're not respecting me.
No, you're trying to hijack the show.
No, it's not a question of hijacking the
JJ,
show.
finish your point, and then Tarek will talk, and then we'll hear from Paige.
I just think that there's two sides to every coin. You know, if you being a victim, I mean, contradictory as this seems, can often be a form of privilege unto itself, in the sense that it generates a great deal of sympathy, a great deal of benefit of the doubt that you're less likely to get in other contexts. You know, if a woman says that she's being denied a promotion because of sexism, if a person of color says that he's being, treated unfairly by the police because of racism, there is a great deal of sympathy that is automatically and uncritically given in to these people that make assertions of victimhood. So that unto itself is really a form of privilege as well. And I'm not saying that that necessarily contradicts white privilege, but I'm saying is that when you live in a diverse, multiracial, multicultural society, there are many different forms of privilege and victimization that sort of overlap and contradict and create a sort of diverse society in which we should all be sort of humble, in which we should all be empathetic to each other, rather than trying to cling into these narrow narratives of one group always oppressing the other. The idea that this is some zero-sum game, I just is not think is an accurate assessment.
All right, well, go ahead and respond.
Respond to what? He never addressed white privilege. You ask a discussion on white privilege and you get an argument that because I am discriminated at airports, that is my privilege. Because cab drivers are essentially Indian, Pakistani, Somali, and dark-skinned, that's their privilege. Because Somalis are overrepresented in the parking lots, that's their privilege.
You're talking about discrimination. Though.
I'm not
How
talking.
am I being privileged? You're talking about a negative impact.
No.
How
I didn't.
am I the benefit of white privilege?
I didn't. I talked about white privilege and I gave you an example which you knocked out as if I was in high school. I'm not in high school. I know white privilege because I've lived through white privilege. Do you want to talk about white privilege?
I think the Twitter example is a bad example.
Why is it a bad example? Who?
Because we don't know why some social media company puts a blue check mark.
No.
I think it actually has to do with if you were to put your email address more, and they would actually see a news organization's email address. Because that's when I got my blue tag right after I added Anthony.Fury and Sunny.
It doesn't work that
so
way.
you know what?
Maybe
That's not
just
right.
a second.
Terry,
It's all
is
there.
it possible you don't understand social media?
No, I do, and I could teach you a thing or two about media. You don't get 50,000 followers by not knowing what is social media, but you do have the ability to lecture someone who knows about social media because you got white privilege.
Oh, that's the only reason.
That is. Well, how else could you say that to me?
Well, I don't know how you got your opinions then.
No. How do you account for knowing about my inability on social media when I know what social media is and I know exactly and I teach it? And you are lecturing me and getting away with it by saying, oh, because you know social media, therefore you don't know it.
I think a better example may be to give that a person of a color or whatnot generally doesn't get to star in a television show or be the main anchor, main personality. Usually a person, that someone plays the black best friend and so forth, so the white privilege, the leading man in society is often a white guy. We can give examples
That's a question
like
of
that.
discrimination.
It's an interest.
That is racism. I'm not discussing...
All right. I don't think that's right.
I'm
Nobody
not
has the right
discussing...
to star in a television
Okay,
series.
wait a second. We'll be back on this, and we're going to hear from Paige coming up in just a second on Straight Talk. The Elementary Teachers Federation of Ontario is running a workshop on white privilege. Let's hear from Paige McPherson. Paige, what's your thought on this?
Well, look, obviously, based on our discussion that we just had, white privilege is a really controversial topic. And I think that one thing that this topic does, first and foremost, is create division. Now, this is generally a concept that is reserved for, chatter within university classrooms, a kind of fluffy academic term that doesn't really, personally, in my opinion, I don't really think it has a real practical place in society. But what we're seeing from the Elementary Teachers Federation of Ontario is that they've decided to focus on this by holding a workshop on it. And not only are they calling for conference speakers for this workshop, they're also calling for curriculum writers. Now that obviously implies that there's going to be some kind of curriculum written about white privilege. And my big question here and my concern here is, why do we have to bring it to the level of children who are in elementary school? The maximum age being 13 or 14. Do we really have to create division amongst these children with this lofty academic topic, which is really just going to create division and I think confuse children beyond the point that's necessary, just because it's some politically correct thing that the teachers union wants to discuss in Ontario? Maybe they should be focusing on the declining math and literacy scores that exist in Ontario right now, instead of bringing it to a question of race when you're talking about dealing with 8-year-olds.
All right, so basically what she's talking about, Tariq Fatah, is the politics of division instead of inclusion.
Yeah, I think therefore we should have at least 40% of the cab drivers should be white. 80% of the grocery store owners should be white, because it's a 18-hour job, and the fact that it's only Koreans and only Somalis doing this is politically correct. Are we blind to the fact that 80% of jobs are never advertised, that they go to the people and folks who come here as landed immigrants have absolutely no links to those networks?
How is it that almost everybody working at the Chinese restaurant is Chinese? Isn't that the same thing?
That's the family.
No, it isn't.
That's
No. Family can't possibly be big enough to
That's
fill
your
up some of the
example
restaurants.
of how privileged Chinese are privileged.
You brought up the
I-
point
I'm-
of people you know.
Why is there no cab driver that looks like you in Toronto? Have you ever wondered?
Well,
Just a second. We live in a city where 40% of the population is racial minority, right?
The sons of cab
Just-
drivers do not have access to the education system and to social
They can't get the
stratification
jobs.
in
They
Canada.
don't. I'm telling you that
They don't have
One
access
second.
to
So I have
education.
brown doctors and those are not brown. How did they
are
ascend through the
self-employed.
system?
Doctors are self-employed. Don't give me that example. The 9 to 5.
You have to get into school. You have to be hired by the health
Yes.
network. I mean, come on, you know
Andrew,
that.
you do not get hired in a 9 to 5 job until and unless you know the networking principles. And the first generation immigrant does not, I do not have it for my daughter or my other daughter. It doesn't exist.
But that's not a skin color issue
It
then.
is.
White privilege is skin
What-
color. You're
that's-
saying first
one
generation.
second.
I've
The
worked
white-
government jobs, private sector jobs, people of all skin colors.
Andrew, the
Nobody has a
white-
problem with
Can I
that
ask
being
you a
there.
question?
privilege exists, and the fact that every white person around here is denying is the evidence that the elementary teachers need to do this because you're all
No,
blind.
nobody is denying that we
wait.
live in a racialized society
No, I'm
where
not
there are
talking race.
advantages
I'm
and
talking of privilege.
disadvantages.
No, I'm
I want to ask
talking
you a
of
question.
privilege.
I want to ask you a question.
Yes.
How is it possible in this horrible world you've described?
No, I didn't
Just
describe
wait a
it.
second.
I didn't say
Can
that.
I ask the question?
I didn't say that. Don't put words in my mouth.
Okay, I'm going to ask the question whether you like it or not.
Yes.
The question is, how did you possibly get a newspaper column and a publishing deal and all of these things that you have?
I worked pretty hard for it, and you would like
Oh,
to
I
know.
see.
We could discuss the publishing column as well over here as to what is white privilege and what is not. We could. You want to discuss that?
There's a lot of white people would love to have all of those things, and they
Absolutely.
don't have them.
No,
So you are in
there
there.
are.
White people don't earn anything, but Tarek Fatah does.
I think
See,
the
and that is a
reality
form
of
of
the
privilege unto
situation,
itself.
the reality of the situation is that everybody on this panel has worked very hard for what they've accomplished. I'm a woman. I've never once said, "Oh, well, there's
I
white
didn't actually.
male
I'm a Muslim, so I
privilege,
got this job."
so I can't get what I have, or it was harder for me because I was a woman." The reality is that in Western society, when you're living in Canada, it's equality of opportunity, and that's how we create the society that we have today, which I would say is a pretty good, pretty fair, and equitable society. Equality of outcomes is something that we as a society have to work toward. We don't have, equality of opportunity is how that is fostered, and that's what we have. It's true that when an immigrant comes to this country, yeah, it's a difficult transition for them, but they're coming to this country so that their children can have equality of opportunity with my children being born in Canada. And just because my children will be white or half white
That's
or
not
whatever,
what I'm saying, Paige. You're missing the point. Your parents and me have a completely different circle. I do not have the privilege that your parents have where you can circulate a network.
It's not white.
And
If I
I'm
moved to
lying
Syria,
about it.
if I moved to
I didn't
Pakistan
know.
today,
Yes,
I would not have.
That would be Arab privilege over there.
All right,
Okay,
let's.
well,
oh,
it's
okay.
not a
All
skin
right.
color thing worldwide.
It is.
Oh,
But
hold
the
on.
issue was there.
Let's get a comment from the person we've heard from the least, JJ.
Yes, well, I mean, I suppose that what this whole discourse is really showing is that, it matters sort of what values and what virtues we are going to be teaching to our children and what values and virtues we sort of want society to embody as we go forward. There is a very distressing trend with some of this social justice, some of this identity politics stuff, which is all about really sort of sowing discord, sowing anxiety, sowing distrust, sowing, kind of antagonistic relationships between racial groups, which is really not what a multicultural, diverse society is supposed to be all about. It is not supposed to be about blaming one group for the hardships that you have, or it's not supposed to be about minimizing the achievements of a group that they have simply because that they're a member of the supposed the most privileged race, or whose privileges are bigger than others, or getting into this endless sort of game of measurement and grievance applauding. I mean, this is a very problematic society because then what you get what we're seeing right now on this panel is endless screaming and squabbling over who has it toughest.
That's my
And
point.
I don't think that
We
is
always
healthy.
Scream and squabble. You see, we're not really civilized human beings. And thank you so much for assuring me where I belong.
Tarek, I think your
I-
point that people have networks and systems if they've been around for a long time and they have a bunch of relationships they've established is just correct. And newcomers don't
That's
have
it.
those, and it takes
And
a while
that's-
to develop them. But how
Absolutely.
is that white privilege? Because a black family who's been here for many generations has that. An Arab
He
newcomer
does.
versus an Arab.
Are you saying the Nova Scotian blacks have that privilege? Are you seriously going to say
Are you
that
saying
200
that
years
low-income
of-
white people in small towns have privilege?
No, they don't. No, they don't. But
No.
the people in this city with 60% racial minority communities, look around the offices and then we'll talk.
All you're saying is established people are established, and they've established networks. And I agree,
So
and I don't
that's your
think there are
privilege.
active.
Why would-
But there are not active barriers to shut people out of coming into the system,
There is.
like there are in other caste system societies.
There is that barrier. And since you've never experienced it, you should not be saying it does not exist. The barriers we have faced on a day in, day out basis, you will never ever dream of.
The fact is
Move
that
to another society. How do
Yes.
you know I haven't applied to work at a majority gay employment place? How do you know I haven't spent time at working, trying to get
Excellent, but
employed
that
at
would
an
be-
African consulate?
That would be gay privilege on Church Street. That exists. Precisely
So all
the
you're saying is
point.
there are microcosms in society, and there are
No,
different
the
advantages
point
to
is-
All
that.
right.
And I agree.
Paige, is there male privilege?
Of course there is.
Not based on what I've experienced in society. No, I don't think anybody can say, "Oh my gosh," to me on this panel, because I'm the only woman on this panel, and I guess you can never understand the experience that I've been through as a woman. But I just don't feel that I've been discriminated against for that reason. In fact,
Maybe
in
you
my
need to be
career-
re-educated by the Elementary Teachers
in
Federation of
my-
Ontario.
Well, there's another point, Jerry, because what I've experienced on this panel is that somebody has told me that I've had networks that I was born into. Not at all true. Actually, my parents were dirt poor when they had me, and I had no networks existing that I could take advantage of, never benefited from familial connections in my career at all whatsoever. And that I think is the case for a lot of white Canadians. But, somebody says that to me, I can handle that. That's fine. I'm an adult on this
No,
panel. I can
Paige,
deal with it. But what I do not
Paige,
think
let
is
her finish.
acceptable
I'll let you
is
go
that our
last.
children would have to deal with it from their peers if that kind of an environment was fostered, or from their teachers, because their teachers are being taught at their union workshops that there is white privilege, that a white kid in their class would be better off because they have some kind of familial connections in public schools that everybody's paying for, that everybody can
Sure.
attend, equal opportunity.
do you-
I think that's absurd that we would want to put our children through
Don't
that
run out
kind of
the
an
clock,
environment.
Paige. Do you recognize that 80% of the jobs are never advertised? Do you recognize that?
I don't know where that figure
You don't?
comes from.
Oh, you
frankly.
don't know
Oh,
that?
wait a second. Do all brown, black, and Asian people always advertise every job
Well,
they
actually,
have?
because we run this country,
No,
we
no, I'm
don't.
saying that's
We're very racist.
how employment works. All right.
Employment works without advertising.
I know
it.
that some jobs
By
that
getting
I've
a
applied to have
job
had
through a
quotas
golf
that I don't
course.
apply
All right,
for.
here's what we're going to do. Because he's the only non-white person, we're going to give some privilege to Tarek, and you can run out the clock. Go ahead.
No, I don't wish to. I don't wish to.
Oh, I'm offering you a final statement here.
No.
Well, I
There
wish
isn't.
to because I have privilege,
Yes.
and I'll take it away.
Please.
Then you can interrupt me, or if Tarek wants to keep talking. I do not think the Elementary Teachers Federation should be doing this because it focuses on what makes us different, not makes us the same. And as we angle towards trying to have a post-racial society where the grievances that Tarek brings up, that I deny in specific, I agree in the specific cases, I deny that there's a mass generalization about it. I think we should be working to eradicate that by focusing on what makes us similar, by focusing on our strengths, not our divisions.